Hello and welcome to episode 28 of the RF Generation Playcast. I'm GreyGhost81, and in this episode, we'll be discussing our game for July 2016. This month, we'll jump all the way back to the beginning of Naughty Dog's critically acclaimed Uncharted franchise, as Floyd takes us through a playthrough of Uncharted: Drake's Fortune on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. Does this game hold up almost 9 years after its original release, or is it better left buried in the past? Find out in our discussion. Please remember to follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and like us on Facebook. You can listen to the show on Podbean and iTunes. As always, don't forget to log on to rfgeneration.com to join our playthroughs and discuss the awesome games we play together. Thank you as always for listening, and now, on with the Playcast. Oh my God, I'm so happy to be on the air. I have such a great weekend lined up, and it kicks off with this freaking podcast, and I'm psyched. All right.
That's right.
And then the hookers.
I love doing these shows with you guys on Fridays.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's a much better experience than doing it on a Sunday night where you know that you have to get up the next morning and go to work. The feeling of happiness to talk about a game, and then the feeling of upcoming doom and dread.
Yeah, the work week is doom.
Oh, it's not. Well, for me, it's not that bad, but I know what you're saying.
No, I like my job. I get to go on walks and catch Pokemon all day.
Hell yeah.
Where I live, I'm really lucky. Hey, how do you guys know kilometers now that you're playing Pokemon Go?
No.
Man, I've been a proponent of the metric system forever because it
just makes sense.
It totally just makes sense, and the conversions are so much easier.
Yeah.
But
what
cool
you guys with your
kilometers.
imperial system? Come on, water freezes at 32 and boils at 100 and 212.
212, yeah.
Yeah, come on, just make freezing point 0 and make boiling point 100.
Well, if you already know our system, why don't you get on board?
Because I don't want to do math.
It really doesn't make a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
how have you guys progressed in your Pokemon Go adventures?
I think Steven's a grandmaster now.
That's right.
Probably is. He's probably in the Elite Four.
Yeah.
He's a secret 5th member of the Elite Four.
He's ready to burn his phone after all the texts that we send around about Pokemon Go and him being the only one not playing.
Yeah, I learned a lot about Pokemon Go from you guys.
I just, let's see, I'm level 19 now, almost level 20.
Damn.
So, yeah.
That's good, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just 14, and I'm noticing seems to be dropping off a little bit. The area near me that I was talking about in the last show, the church and the water tower, I never see anybody there anymore. I don't want to call it because I do see the gym changing hands a lot. That is also there. So hopefully people are still hanging around, but they're also unfortunately doing a little construction at the water tower. So I think that's deterring people from hanging out there. But
Yeah.
I can tell, like, as I kind of predicted, as anybody could have predicted, it's kind of dropping off
Sure.
a little. People have said it's peaked, you know.
Yeah.
How long has it been out now? At least for you, because it's been out here for maybe 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
It's been what, 5 weeks now?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even a month, because it came out like a couple days before my birthday, which is the 9th. Today's the 29th, so
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
It's I've noticed a drop off too. Like there was a really nice park downtown, and it used to be a lot of lures like thrown up in the park during the day, like all day long, and that's dropped off a bit. But there's actually near where I work, there's a children's museum, and they throw up a lot of lures like during the day. So I'll walk over there.
To luring children?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, I don't know what they're trying to lure. They're luring me over there, so I just look like a pedophile, I guess, hanging around the museum, standing like on the side, where all the kids are and stuff. I'm like, I'm just trying to catch some Pokemon. I'm not here to steal your kids. So.
Anyway, since I had some computer issues that got me kicked out of the call, I kind of wanted to update, how I've been going through the game and what my thoughts are. So I hit level 7 a couple days ago.
Yep.
And, which is not a bad accomplishment for me because I think there's only, I'm in a very suburban area. So
yeah.
We only have, if I really wanted to go out for like a good walk, I can probably hit maybe 5 Pokestops.
Wow.
And then sort of like hit them one way and then 5 on the way back.
Yeah.
There's 2 gyms and there's always this like turf war going on between blue
the Sharks
and
the Jets.
The Sharks and the Jets, yeah, man. It's always blue and red. So every so often yellow kind of somehow manages to take over for a bit.
Yeah.
I saw a funny meme, not to cut you off, Floyd, but there was a funny graphic going around Facebook. It said, has anybody experienced this glitch in Pokemon Go when sometimes the gyms turn yellow?
Yeah. No, that's true.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
There must be people who are instinct, right? Yellow, but I don't know. They're not taking over gyms.
I think it's just a color preference thing. I think just
Maybe.
more people prefer red and blue, as opposed to yellow. I don't think there's really anything to that, but it's really funny, like we talked about in our podcast, is how people associate themselves with these different groups and and segregate themselves based on this game. It's pretty crazy.
And you guys talked a lot about like the social interaction, and that was one thing that, of course, being in a very suburban area, I'm kind of missing out on. But one person that I work with also plays, and it was so weird and cool and fun to talk about Pokemon, and to be like a grown adult and you're talking about Pokemon. It's like I said, it's weird, but it's fun at the same time.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yep.
Shawn and I caught our first Pikachus on the same day.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Good stuff. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, we're Pikachu brothers now.
Pika Bros.
Pika Bros.
Hashtag Pika Bros.
But enough about that, because Steven, you still awake?
Yeah, thanks for the wake up call.
I didn't want someone else on this podcast to start playing guitar.
Oh,
but
I can accommodate
anyway,
you.
why are we really here, guys?
to talk about new things that we've been doing and maybe things we've been watching on TV, right?
That's right.
Anybody else watching Stranger Things? I know Floyd is. Steven?
Oh my goodness, that's such a great show.
no, what is that? I don't even know what it is.
You have Netflix?
I do, yeah.
Oh, you got to check it out. How about you, Shawn? You been watching it yet?
I usually say I don't watch TV. TV is for stupid people.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen it.
I got a buddy that's like that. My buddy Cameron, he doesn't watch a lot of TV. He plays more video games or plays his guitar. He doesn't watch TV, but his girlfriend.
That's me. That's exactly it.
Yeah, same here.
Different strokes for different folks, but I think like if you got it's only 8 episodes, so I think it's something you can kind of pick up and put down really quick. It has a very 80s vibe. It's actually set in 1983. It's a very 80s feel, Spielberg, like Goonies, E.T. meets like Aliens and X-Files. That's how I would describe it. Floyd, am I right on that?
Yeah, I mean, I know this is more like, Twin Peaks is like 1990, so like it just missed the cutoff, but it's kind of got that vibe too in a way.
Yeah, well, Matthew Modine definitely looks like David Lynch.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
Yeah, but it's a
fantastic show.
It's a horror type thriller too. So if you like horror films, you'll definitely dig it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do want to check it out. To be quite honest, I have always had a super huge mega crush on Winona Ryder since I was like a since I was like 11 years old. You know what I mean? Like, so that piqued my interest quite a bit.
She's, I mean, to me, just even hotter, older, just grown up now. She's really good in this. She's very well acted. So it's always interested to see like kind of child stars and how they transition into, adult actors. Most of them never make it, and she's actually done a good job.
Yeah, I think she did her role really well. And what were you going to say?
Hashtag Pika Bros love Winona Ryder.
Yeah. And like anyone who's...
That's very specific, Rich.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get many clicks.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said to Rich, this show just oozes the 80s. Like the four main characters are all like, I guess they're preteen guys, and like they gather in their basement and play Dungeons and Dragons, and like the majority of the soundtrack is all like ambient synth stuff. So
it reminds me of It Follows, if any of you saw that movie.
Yeah,
it's got that same sort of soundtrack, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like what's the name? John Carpenter.
Yeah,
kind of like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of John Carpenter influence in it. Yeah, certainly. Anybody playing anything cool? Pick up anything cool lately?
I don't know.
Steven, you're the guy that's got the huge list of games beaten. What are you playing?
I've been playing Alundra on PlayStation.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
how's that?
Nice.
It's pretty good. I don't want to set up any expectations, but I'm sort of trying my hand at writing some game reviews. So I might. I've actually pretty much written a review for this game, and once I finish it, I might post it up on the RF Generation blog.
Cool.
So you guys can hear all
Very
about
cool.
my thoughts.
That's something to look forward to.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Look forward to it. Let me know when it goes up.
Sure.
Be really cool. Shawn, you just posted an article, right? On RF Generation.
Yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, it's essentially it's a capsule review of Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 2, but I also discussed the fact that I tend to gravitate and I'm a little attracted to sequels that kind of get slammed for being not as good as the original, because I think like with anything, with a sequel to a movie or a band that has like a second album after their first album was really good, sometimes we have to evaluate a work of art as its own work and not just how it follows up to the previous entry.
Sure.
So that's kind of what my article was about. But yeah, I've been just playing since I finished Uncharted. I mentioned that I was playing Pokemon Black on the DS, and since I finished Uncharted, I've kind of gotten sucked into Pokemon Black, and I haven't even fired up a new console game. I've just been like kind of on my DS all the time now. So when I'm not playing Pokemon Go, I'm playing Pokemon Black. So that's what's going on for me.
Well, one thing's for sure, we're not going to be able to play any Pokemon games on our playthrough. I went to the game store today, sort of the used media store, and they had yellow and red, and they were selling them for $51 a piece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so get some of that. I mean, it's basically off the craze. It's in the same store when David Bowie died, got in some David Bowie records, and they were just like the edges were just in shambles of these records, and they were selling them. I'm sorry, not David Bowie, but Prince.
Prince. Oh, okay.
Yeah. The records were sort of in shambles on the sides, and they were selling for $30 a piece. I mean, like no sort of pricing whatsoever, just slapping $30 on there, no looking it up or anything. And of course, they sold them. Because people, right?
Damn.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens to the price of those games if they end up dropping after everyone, puts it down. But I guess the good thing is we'll be seeing some Game Boy games in the market, say 5-10 years from now, right? When people are ready to give those up. So
yeah,
once
for sure.
again. Anyway, how about you, Floyd? Anything new?
Well, I've been playing a really great movie called Uncharted.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I think I played that one as well.
What say you? We're ready to get into that or what?
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, I kind of wanted to say that I've been playing this movie because typical Naughty Dog in the PS3 eras, they're going for that cinematic game feel.
Sure.
You know, gotta shoot some bad guys and then put the controller down for 5 minutes.
What other games have you guys played by Naughty Dog? I know Last of Us is Naughty Dog, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did that one.
I've played Uncharted 2.
Okay.
Which is a huge improvement. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but it's a huge improvement over the first Uncharted game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? I know Steven's played this series. I'm sorry, Shawn.
Yeah, I've played all the Uncharted games. I played The Last of Us, and I've played one of the Crash Bandicoot games. I think it was the third one, like way back in the day. But yeah, always a big fan of Naughty Dog stuff.
Yeah. How about you, Shawn? I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I played Uncharted 2 first. That was the first Naughty Dog game I ever played. And then I played 3, and then I went back and played 1. That was a while back, though. I mean...
Yeah.
And then I played Last of Us for the playthrough. But I've never... I never have completed... like maybe dabbled in a Crash or a Jak and Daxter game. My wife played Jak 2 quite a bit, but that game's really hard. She didn't get super far into it or finish it or anything. But yeah, I'm just modern Naughty Dog. I haven't gone back to Crash or anything. So
yeah, I've played Crash 2. I've played that one almost to the end. I almost finished it. And then I recently picked up Crash 1. Which is, man, price is really getting up there on that. I didn't realize there were so many Crash fans. I didn't realize it was that big of a deal. But you know, I guess, you know, for the PlayStation era, and I don't remember Crash games like when I was, you know, growing up and playing PlayStation. So, but apparently, people are really fanatical about Crash, and he sort of became the, I guess, sort of the spokesperson for.
He's pretty much
right?
the. Crash is like the Mario of PlayStation.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're fun games. They're different. I really enjoy them. So, they've gotten a little oversaturated with kart games and whatnot. But yeah, that's pretty much my experience up until Uncharted, we just played. So, but anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, Uncharted is, you know. I think Uncharted was probably the result of Naughty Dog wanting to make a change in the games they were making. Because as we already mentioned, they were doing games like Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, which were really family friendly.
Platformer type games too.
Platformer type games, and you know, generally very approachable and games that really didn't have people in them. Uncharted was the first game that actually Naughty Dog made that had people. So they this is the first in a series of now 4 games. So you have your main protagonist, Nathan Drake. He claims to be the son or the late relative of Sir Francis Drake, his famous explorer and treasure hunter of, you know, hundreds of years ago. But anyway, Nate is looking for any clues that can lead him to Francis Drake and El Dorado. And he's joined by Elena Fisher, who's a reporter who, you know, she's very handy with a gun and can always get herself out of trouble. And he's got Sully by his side. He's sort of Nate's mentor, and, well, Sully always knows how to get himself into trouble.
Yeah, it seems like it, and from what I understand from the other games, a little bit of a repetitiveness about him getting in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of skirts a line between like a mentor figure and like the comic relief character.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're looking for the treasure of El Dorado. So that brings us to sort of Central South America. And basically, Nathan Drake finds out that he's not the only one looking for the treasure. He's accosted by his rival treasure hunter, Gabriel Roman, and you know, now they're racing for the gold, and you know, this is this is where the game becomes very like Indiana Jones. I'm sure we're going to get into that later, all the sort of references to those kind of movies. But yeah, and this is also where like a straightforward review of the story kind of is a little bit difficult to pull off, because I mean, so many things happen, and it's, you know, so many things coming out of like left field. Like you find an old German U-boat, you find like a decommissioned or abandoned bunker, and it's so yeah, it's a lot of weird stuff happens in the middle, and in the end turns out that Gabriel Roman got to the treasure first, but obviously because he's the bad guy, he can't go home with it. You manage to take him out, or actually he's fooled by Navarro, and Navarro ends up going home with the treasure, or at least trying to, and you kind of have one big showdown on that big, out on the ocean. You're fighting Navarro and trying to save the day.
Yeah. Poor Roman.
I think.
Yep. Poor Roman opens the Ark.
Yeah. Yeah. See. Yeah. It's just like the Ark, right?
Yeah.
And I know I kind of stumbled through that sort of story review, but really, I think that's the best way that I could summarize. You know, really twisty turny sort of. It's not convoluted, but it's a wacky story.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I for one, just to kind of start it off, I like the story. I like the characters a lot. They're kind of fun characters. Drake's kind of a fun character, you know, a little bit funny. So there's a little,
he's supposed to be, right?
Yeah, it's a little comical relief. I like Sully a lot. Just, you know, kind of best friend, kind of, you know, treasure hunter. So I like all the characters a lot in the game. Good villains, but which you don't see much of. You get them in glimpses of, just video glimpses of them. You know, there's not a lot of action between them. The most time you're sort of fighting these hired mercenaries for the most part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really true. It's sort of, there's always like this back and forth race between you and the villains. You know, first you're one step ahead, and then they're one step ahead, and it's kind of, you know, that back and forth all the way to the end.
Yep. How about the rest of you guys? Thoughts on the story?
I guess I could pretty much echo what you said. I enjoyed the story, and I really like the characters. I like the humor. I like that Drake's kind of a smart ass, and a lot of witty one-liners, and I'm a big fan of like 80s action movies, so I love like the one-liners and things like that. I guess for me, most of the time with most games, the story is kind of secondary to the gameplay. So, you know, I know a lot of people are quick in a lot of games to point out, you know, plot holes and flaws that they have with it. But I mean, I usually don't nitpick. Maybe not the greatest story out there, but I enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think Elena is my favorite character in this game because she's just a little bit more grounded than the other characters. She's kind of over her head and is, capable, but, you know, kind of keeps getting herself into trouble. I found, and again, having played this game and the other two, not Uncharted 4 yet, but I've played 2 and 3. I just, like, coming back to it this time, I found Nate to be kind of annoying with his the attitude of, oh, what could go wrong? Or like, it's like, dude, you are in imminent, constant danger of death, and this woman who is with you and this old man who is with you, like, I don't know. It's just, again, maybe nitpicking, or maybe
I almost don't want to call that nitpicking because Nate's character is really like relevant to the story, because it's sort of like, well, what can go, like he always says, what can go wrong? But it's a video game, it's very pulpy, so something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, that's a good word for it, pulpy. I think it's perfect. Like, he is kind of like the Harrison Ford character. Like, he's the Han Solo, the Indiana Jones, like just the devil may care, goofy rogue, So that's fine. Yeah. It's just I don't know. By like playing it this time, I noticed it more. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but it's a well written game. I'm not going to bash it too much.
Yeah, I felt the same way, actually. Like, not that it really bothered me, but I played, just so everybody knows, I played Uncharted 4 like right when it came out, and then we did this playthrough shortly after.
Right.
And there's a pretty big disconnect between those two games in terms of that type of attitude, and I noticed it immediately playing Uncharted 1 again. That first scene on the boat, and those pirates show up, and he's just like, okay, here we go, let's shoot some pirates. It's like it's no big deal,
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird scene, and I think it's like an intro scene to kind of give you a grasp on the gameplay,
right,
and what's going to be expected, the sort of duck and cover mechanics, and it does feel. I'll admit, playing the game for the first time, that did feel like kind of a little awkward and kind of strange. Instead of just sort of throwing you into the game to have like a tutorial there at the beginning was a little weird, but
that kind of was the tutorial, right?
Yeah,
they wanted to give you a tutorial without it feeling like one, right?
Yeah. Put some story behind it or whatever. Yeah.
Right. They didn't want like a big text box to open up and say like, press R1 to shoot. Do this to do that.
Mm-hmm. There is a little bit of that.
A little bit, but it's not so. It's not like invasive.
Yeah. I find one of the things you guys were talking about Elena's character. I feel like she's almost the one that pushes them to stay, because at one point Nathan's trying to leave, and I think this is sort of after like the jet ski scenes in the game. He's like, well, let's get out of here, and she's like, well, don't you want to just stick around, and don't you want to see where this leads, and find this treasure, and at some point he's almost about to give up, and just is more worried about his survival, and then she kind of talks him into staying, which is kind of
that's
funny.
A good point.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I never really thought about that, but yeah, good thing you brought it up.
But I guess
flip flop it a little bit on you.
Yeah, but I guess with his friend, when you kind of figure out like what's going on with Sully, and you realize that Sully hasn't, there's this kind of red herring that he's sort of double crossed you, and you find out that that's not true. That he had to sort of play along because they needed him to help find the treasure. So he plays along with dying. That kind of gives you more of a reason to stay, to save him. And you're constantly getting separated from him too. So
right,
you can't really leave him behind.
I was initially going to save this for just a little bit later on, but I mean, since we're kind of talking about it, and since we already mentioned that, like right off the bat, the pirates show up, and Nate is just like, okay, here we go, let's go fight some bad guys. I mean, like, do you think Uncharted is just sort of like a sign of the times of video games in 2007? And then I'm sure Steven can chime in on this one and say, like, what Uncharted 4 is like in 2016.
I'll let Steven field this question, speaking from somebody who is still stuck in 1987.
Yeah.
So I'll let him and Shawn, I know, has played a lot more modern games too. So the two of them kind of tell us what the state of games was at that point.
Yeah, it's hard to put myself back in 2007 and try to remember what things were like, but judging from reviews of the game that came out around that time, I'd say that's probably accurate, that this game, the first Uncharted, does reflect the state of games, because it was highly praised for its cinematic nature and its dialogue and its story and all these things. And then when you compare it to current games like The Last of Us and Uncharted 4 and Quantic Dream stuff and all these other things, it feels I guess maybe shallow in those areas in comparison.
Right. It's more gamey.
Right. Exactly.
cinematic.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something we were kind of talking, on the call about, one of the tough things for me, I mean, and this was probably, I'm not saying it was the first, but, an early game where, dual thumbsticks were kind of used, and, for third-person shooters. And it's, to me, it kind of feels like the game is sort of getting its legs, and I don't know. I know it wasn't the first. I know there was, stuff on the PlayStation 2 that, was twin stick, but I don't recall a whole lot of stuff that was sort of like run and aim, with two sticks.
Right.
On the PlayStation 2.
It's a good point that you brought that up because, like the gunplay action is one thing that really improved in Uncharted 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and just to go back to how does this game stack up as far as games were and when it was released, I think that's precisely the problem that I had with this game. And sometimes I think about games as far as like, when a game came out a while ago, you say, can you go back to that game? And I think with Uncharted 1, I feel like I was going back to a game that needn't have gone back to, you know what I mean? And I think just playing through the game thinking like, okay, there's no RPG elements in this game. There's no level up system. There's no... It's very bare bones, but that's not a fault of the game design. It's just it's what was going on at the time,
were, right?
Right. When I'm thinking about games like the Tomb Raider reboot or Metal Gear Solid 5, which I'm still playing, like other modern, and I mean modern, like within the past 2 or 3 years, third-person shooters, they're just leaps and bounds over Uncharted 1. But that's, again, that's because Uncharted 1 is a product of its time and not because it wasn't, innovative enough for its time. But this, for me, this was a really hard game to go back to for those reasons.
Well, and
right. I think,
I actually feel the opposite. It's just, I think it's funny because, like I said, I just finished playing Uncharted 4, and it's so much more cinematic, and I thought I would have a hard time going back to the first game because it does feel, in many ways, in almost every way, it feels very dated in comparison. But it was kind of refreshing to me that it was about the gameplay and it wasn't quite as cinematic. And I just think it's funny that a lot of the reasons why you didn't like it are the same reasons why I did like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah,
to be honest.
That is, no. I'm kind of glad to hear that because as it stands right now, I've only played the first 2 games, and even though like I have to agree that it's become more cinematic and it's relied more on cutscenes as the series has progressed, the first one does feel more gamey and like those gamey elements don't feel as fleshed out or polished, even going into just the second game, which is only sort of my frame of reference.
Floyd, I'm sorry. I'm kind of curious, just real quick. This was your game, Floyd, that you hosted. What made you pick this title?
I've always had some appreciation for the Uncharted series. Even though I was a little bit of a late adopter for the PlayStation 3, I didn't get it at launch. I didn't get Uncharted at launch. But I think what really hooked me in my initial playthrough, and I think it was 2012 is when I first played it. So was that sort of like, it's like I'm playing an Indiana Jones movie.
Okay.
Like it didn't really bother me that the characters were somewhat flat. It just was very pulpy, and that's what really drew me to it. It was just a fun experience. Like it's not the best game out there. It wasn't the best game of 2007, but it's a very fun game.
And I think, like, with our playthroughs, I think one of the things is, like we mentioned, Uncharted 4 has recently come out. We're trying to do a better job about looking at what's coming out, maybe revisiting some of the earlier titles in a certain series. And I think, we have a tendency to always play the first game in the series because we're always kind of like, well, maybe someone hasn't played the first game yet. And not that all of these games are always related. I'm sure you can play Uncharted 2 and never have played Uncharted 1 and everything's fine. You don't need that backstory for that. But I think it's just sort of the nature of the beast and sort of what we do. I mean, we could have probably picked one that would have been a little more refined, but I think it's always nice to kind of go back and play that original and see how it holds up.
Definitely. I think that was a big part of my choice in choosing this game. And just the fact that, like you said, Uncharted 4 came out, was it like 2-3 months ago? So, we're trying to be somewhat relevant to what's happening in the gaming world. And, in addition to that, we want to go back and sort of see the roots of a particular game series.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's kind of, kind of a bigger question as far as what we're talking about and differences in the way we kind of felt about the game is there's this sort of idea like, when a game comes out, you play it, and then a few years later, like let's say like I'm playing Nintendo, and then Super Nintendo comes out, so I'm so into Super Nintendo, and then everything on Nintendo is sort of like, whatever. And then, you go throughout, you grow up a little bit, and then you're like, oh, I want to go back to Nintendo. I remember playing that, I had some nostalgia for it. And I'm just wondering if this game, like Uncharted, if we're not sort of far enough removed, some of us may not be like sort of far enough removed from, how innovative that was when it came out, and we're just, we're just more into the more polished, games that have come out. Does that make sense?
No, that
Maybe
totally
we haven't
does.
been removed far enough to like want to come back and play it yet. If that makes any sense.
No, it does make sense, and I'm kind of curious to see like. So we're playing this game, well, almost 10 years after its original release.
Wow. Yeah.
This 2000, I think around 2007
Hard
it
to
came
believe
out.
it's that old.
Yeah, really. And, just even going back that far, you can see how, yes, this game was, like it's polished for its time. It's good for its time. That doesn't make it hard to come back to, but I think as time goes on, it's only going to become more difficult to come back to.
Oh, okay.
Specifically Uncharted.
Okay.
Because it's very 2007, and I think that's what Shawn and Steven are probably going to agree with me on that.
Yeah, sure. I could totally see why it can be difficult to come back to this game, because the entire time I could just pick out, just about anything in the game and say, well, this was done so much better in the sequels. And I think if you're, when you're accustomed to that, higher level of polish, and it could be difficult to go back to the earlier game.
Right. And see, we have on PS4 the Nathan Drake collection, which is the first 3 games remastered into 1080p, 60 frames a second, all that fun stuff. And a general consensus of the reviews is that Uncharted 1 shows its age. Even when you give that graphical update, it still plays very much like an early PS3 game.
Now, which have you played it on that collection?
Yeah, I played the collection.
Okay. How did you play it, Floyd?
PS3.
Okay, same for me. And Shawn, PS3.
Yeah, I played the original PS3. I think I sent you guys a picture of. I had a friend of mine pick it up at GameStop, and he got the European version, which is cool because the PS3 is region free, so it played fine, and now I have a cool little disc for my collection.
Cool.
Do you have a little story behind your European region game?
No, that's it. Like a coworker of mine works at GameStop part-time, so I said, hey, can you get me a copy of Uncharted? And that's what he came back with.
So somehow this European Uncharted ended up in a GameStop in Texas.
Yep, exactly. and now it's mine.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I played on PS3. I would be interested to see the. Again, I still to this day don't have a PS4, but I would be interested. Maybe I would play 2 and 3 on the remastered collection.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, the only thing you're missing is better frame rate. I think it still does have the texture pop-ins. But better frame rate and in overall screen resolution is the only thing you're missing out on.
Pretty much. I think I'm not sure if the second and third game had this on the PS3 version, but at least in the first game they added in an additional even easier difficulty called Explorer mode. It specifically says it's for people who don't really care about the combat, just want to experience the story. So that might be.
Oh man, I would have loved that.
That might be the way to go for you.
Perfect segue into difficulty of the game. What did you guys think? Even I'm going to say this, and I'm sure I'm just preaching to the crowd here. Uncharted is a fun game, but it's going to frustrate the hell out of you. You're just going to want to throw your controller through a wall.
Well,
or spike it like a football like I did.
Oh.
One time I did.
So I want to hear Steven's, because Steven is really good at video games, and I am not, I will say that. So I want to know, even for you, Steven, were you getting frustrated at especially the final third of the game where we all kind of went nuts and I put a rant on the discussion forum, How did you play? Was this game smooth playing for you, or did you have cheap deaths and frustrations?
It was very difficult for me, but that's because I was playing it on crushing difficulty.
Oh my god, man!
So
I probably wouldn't be able to get past that first level on crushing. Oh my god!
Yeah, I don't even want to know.
I
dude.
couldn't get past that pirate boat introduction on it.
He's got to play it well. But I died a lot on crushing, but I couldn't really be. I did get frustrated, but I couldn't be too mad because it's I played it on crushing. I get getting what I'd asked for, maybe I should have right. Maybe I should have gone back and played it a little bit, played a few chapters on an easier difficulty just to kind of have a more even comparison with what you guys experienced. But seeing that I played it on crushing and that I know you guys played it on easier difficulties, and from what I could tell in the discussions, it seemed like you guys had a harder time with it than I did. So I'm not really sure what happened.
I didn't have a problem with doing platforming in a 3D environment isn't necessarily difficult, but if you can't maneuver the camera in such a way that lines up all the shots, makes it hard. Uncharted tries to put you in these really cinematic camera angles that make it really hard to land a lot of these jumps. And I can't get mad at myself if I miss a jump like that, but this game has a terrible problem of making Nate just be this one-man army taking on waves and waves of enemies.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll just get shot and die, and you're going to be like, who shot me? What happened?
Well, I think you have, and I'll admit, I played the game on normal. I didn't play it on easy difficulty, but I did play it on normal, which is sort of my standard.
Did you step down to easy eventually? Or?
No. And I'll be honest, I did not finish the game. I made it close to level 20, which is very close to the end of the game. And I watched
2 or
video.
3 levels away.
Yeah. I wasn't far at all. I was probably 15 minutes from finishing the game because I watched the rest of it because I did want to see what the ending was like. And I do plan on going back. I don't know. For me, it's just I can't I'm a decent gamer, and but I have to understand sometimes when I'm playing more modern games that I don't really have a familiarity with the controls. That maybe it's best for me to go to easy, but I just can't suck my pride up and do that.
No, that's totally fair.
I've got a bit of an ego, so I can't do it. So I mentioned this to Steven. We were kind of just chatting back and forth, texting and stuff, and I think all of us mentioned that like about 2/3 of the game is where the frustration really set in. I mean, the difficulty amped up, but it's not so much the difficulty, but for me, it was the change in gameplay.
Okay.
Uncharted is primarily from the get-go a duck and cover game, right?
Right.
And so that's what you're doing. You can kind of take your time. You can kind of duck and cover. Like, you might get charged by some enemies every once in a while, but for the most part, if you get hit, you can like drop back behind cover and recover your health.
Right. Even if the enemies try to flush you out of cover with like grenades and whatnot, you can kind of run back and forth between two cover spots.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
Yeah, and even on normal, you can pretty much take a grenade, just not like full force. You can't be right on top of it. You can take some of a grenade on normal, and you can take quite a few shots on normal. But about 2/3 of the way through the game, the gameplay changes. It becomes as Steven mentioned, a survival horror game. And it's not duck and cover. It's just things coming at you quickly, and you're having to react. You're having to reload. It's 2-hit kills. One to 2-hit kills, and so it changes so dramatically that to me that was that was the reason for my frustration.
Right, and you're specifically talking about the
what I called this. Oh my God, this game just turned into The Descent.
Yeah. So that's I
think that was
that's
my
like
quote.
The crypt is where you first run into those zombies or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And then the German bunker.
Right.
Yeah.
And
The
it's
Descent, by the way, is an amazing movie.
oh yeah.
If anybody hasn't
awesome
seen
movie.
it, watch it.
Yeah.
Rich, are you going to do that for your other podcast?
My wife actually picked that.
Awesome.
Which I like high-fived her. She's like, you can veto this one if you want. And I was like, oh no.
No.
No, that one's a keeper.
Yeah, it's a
Freaking love
great
that movie.
It's probably the best movie that came out that year, and one of the best movies made in that decade. I mean, overall movies. It's really
Agreed.
good.
Are you?
Really good.
I know I'm going way off
Sorry,
topic here,
no.
but I kind of want to know what's your criteria for picking movies for your month of horror.
You'll have to wait and listen to the podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'll put that
You're
out.
going to run down your 30 picks as
No,
well?
no. The first podcast we do. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
You'll have to wait for that. I don't want to spend time doing that on this show. But
All right,
do it here, Rich. Come on.
I'll give you a chance to plug that at the end.
sure.
Why not? It's sort of like a side project of yours. You should get some time to let our fans know
I plugged
what
this
you're
show
doing.
on it. I plugged this show on it as well. So yeah,
Very
fair is
interesting.
fair. So,
Appreciate that.
but back to the game and the gameplay and just sort of like I said, there's a very sort of big dramatic moment that happens in the game, and I that was frustrating. Like it was an aggravation with the story as well. But then, as I was telling Steven, as I finished the game or watched the ending of the game to see why this was part of the story, it made sense, and it actually made the overall story better. As you got toward the end of the game, it all kind of tied itself together. It's just a very abrupt, out of nowhere thing that happens, though, and I think. Well,
I think they hint at it a little bit earlier. I think when you find like the bones of some Spanish explorer or something.
Sure.
And I think Nate says, that these are the Spanish. They never left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Nathan Drake isn't the first person to go looking for the treasure of El Dorado, and the actual treasure itself is a curse.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, that was a point. I think the bunker, sort of down in the bunker, like there's tight corridors where things just come running at you, and multiple enemies just running at you. Inability to cover was just where my frustration really grew, because as I told Steven, I mean, you guys would laugh at me so hard watching me play this game because it's just me stopping and me like trying to move my little thumbstick slowly to aim.
I'm the same way. I wouldn't.
I'm the same too.
and holding down the fire button and just wasting so much ammo. Which another thing with the bunker that stunk was that submachine gun was just terrible. I mean, it wasn't very powerful.
Wait, are you
constantly
talking
having to
about
reload.
the grease gun, the Nazi
Yeah,
gun?
the Nazi
I
gun.
like that gun.
Oh, really? Mm. Yeah.
No,
It does.
I mean, not as good as the M4, but good gun.
It
I would
does
really like
the
to have a
trick,
shotgun
right?
down there.
Yeah. See, like it does the trick, but against those zombie things, it's just like, and well, let's talk about it now. Like all the enemies in this game are bullet sponges.
Sure.
And it's just like, you can. I know later on there are enemies with helmets, so naturally they're going to take more than one headshot. But it seems that like specific body parts don't have their own hitboxes.
Mm. The head
like
does.
The head? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
so
head
then
does.
maybe it's just my inability to aim with a thumbstick. Because I mean, I've played some like first person PC games, and it is a heck of a lot easier to aim with a mouse and keyboard.
I think
It is.
Yeah,
it is light years easier.
I think some of it's fair, but I really think like a lot of times like headshots would be one shot kills, but then like chest
like
shots,
a neck shot should be a one shot.
yeah, like a chest shot, or one or two shot, would have been nice, and I think that they're just I think the differentiation as far as the body parts and how many times you had to hit it wasn't. How do you
So
say
would you
it?
say it's like would you say it's good enough? Or
No, I think it just wasn't as accurate as it could have been. Like physically, accurate as it could have been. But
I texted you guys too. Like I don't know how many guys I shot in the groin and they're still standing.
yeah, that's a one shot downer right there. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. Maybe they could shoot at you from on the ground if you did
Right.
that.
Well, that's Max Payne. Yeah. So I mean, like we've talked about the biggest aspect of this game, which is like all the gunfights, and it's almost like I really wish this was more utilized in this game because it's done so well. But the climbing and the exploring,
Yeah.
it's just so much fun, and it punctuates the game really nicely. It gives you a little bit of downtime, and it's too bad that it's pretty much only done in the beginning because towards the end it just becomes sort of just like shooting gallery hallway.
Yeah. I love the climbing mechanics on this game. I know you did, Floyd, too, and just sort of the platforming elements of this game. I thought they were really well done.
Right.
And
again, that's something that got hugely improved in Uncharted 2. And it is done a lot more in the second game.
Yeah, I thought they were really responsive too. I mean, coming from playing games like Shadow of the Colossus, where they were pretty good, but there would be hang-ups every once in a while. I thought it was very smooth. I mean, comparatively from what I've played, I know you guys have played newer games, and I'm sure it's even better, and something that's been ironed out over time. But I liked it. I thought it was really nice. I didn't have a lot of problems with it. There were a few parts like with the vines and things like that, like trying to run on the side and on the vines and trying to jump. And there were some parts where I couldn't figure out where I needed to go next.
And I think a lot of those like where do I go next moments can be attributed to like just weird camera angles.
It was I couldn't see like certain ledges. Certain things didn't always stand out, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
Actually,
or not.
that makes perfect sense. One of the things I was going to say is that for the climbing and platforming, this is one of the aspects of the game that I was happy to go back to because in Uncharted 2, 3, Tomb Raider, the game Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, there's this like thing where when you're trying to climb and platform, the next like block that you can climb to is like shiny and glistening, and it's so obvious. I don't know if you guys remember this in Tomb Raider, but it was kind of that as well.
In Tomb Raider, it's got a really bright white stripe.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
them, basically.
And the later Uncharted games are the same way.
Anything climbable is yellow.
Yeah. So this was kind of cool. This was the one thing that I was kind of happy to go back to, is where you kind of had to actually look at the environment and kind of figure out, is that a handhold? Is that a platform I can stand on, hang on, or whatever?
They are outlined to an extent, but they're not super obvious.
Yeah, I agree. That's interesting that you kind of had that sort of opposite approach. Like maybe like with newer games, it's it's way too obvious, and it's kind of nice to go back to something that's that takes you a little bit of a trial and error to figure out, and it's not so obvious and handhold.
Right. It's a little less refined, and it's good for it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. I almost don't want to call that a refinement. It's like it's a crutch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's there's one to give a hint is one thing, but to physically point you in a certain direction is kind of too much.
Yeah. I feel like this game, I mean, my complaints like with the climbing and the platform are very minor. I did die several times, but nothing that I got overly frustrated about. I finally like figured out what I needed to do next. And I was like, oh, cool. There was one point, one of the more frustrating segments that I finally figured out, and I was like really awesome, was the waterfall sequence where the truck's at the top and you have to shoot the truck and it flips over onto the rocks. Do you remember that? And you have to run across it.
Yeah.
That was so cool. That was a really sort of brilliant way to use the environment, and it took me a while to figure that out because I kept like shooting the guy that was at the truck, and then I would try to platform and jump, and there were no jumps that you could make. And so in fighting the guy, I saw the tank on the back of the truck at one point. I'm like, oh, I'm going to shoot the tank, just real quick to see what happens. And then I shot it, and then the truck flipped over, and then that became your next, step in that sequence. And I was like, oh man, wow, that's really cool. That was a nice use of environment, and little touches like that are things that I really like about games.
Yeah, that's really cool. My favorite platforming moment was when you find the U-boat, and like it's right there, it's right in front of you, but there's no way in unless you climb. I guess it's another waterfall, right? You have to climb up this waterfall and come around the other side, and that was really cool because it's not straightforward.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of exploring, a little bit of trial and error, but I don't get frustrated at things like that. I think they're kind of fun, because when you figure it out, it's like, oh, right, okay, cool,
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's how I felt about this game as far as sort of those mechanics. It was a lot of fun.
Right.
Easily, probably one of the best parts of this game for me.
Oh, definitely. I have to agree with you on that one. And like another thing that I thought was fun, but it was also really easy were the puzzles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You almost can't call them puzzles if you have the solution in your notebook. But yeah, they're
you've got
they're
Shawn
nice,
Connery's
slow.
diary.
Yeah, right. It was nice also for things to slow down, and you can really do some more of that fun climbing and exploring stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the puzzles weren't like overly difficult. I thought, they were pretty easy for the most part, but I could still see like some people kind of flubbing them up and not being able to figure them out. They weren't like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they were exceedingly easy. I don't know. I didn't have any problems with any of the puzzles, but
again, like if we ever get the chance to play Uncharted 2, the puzzles in that game are so much better. And I think they're harder because I'm really only remembering one puzzle, which is a light reflection puzzle, and I've never been a fan of those. I always find them so hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think my favorite sort of puzzle moment in the first Uncharted game was in the library where you have to position the statues. You have to climb up on top of the bookcases.
Right,
and you have to
east, west, north, south.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it actually made you have to think a little bit.
Yeah. I like that too, and that was probably, if I'm not mistaken, probably one of the last puzzles in the game, right?
I think there might be one more.
Maybe
after that.
one more.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that's about halfway through out the game, I would say. And after that, you don't have any puzzles anymore, and that was a little disappointing. I would have, I would have liked to seen like more puzzles, sort of mixed into the combat a little bit more, just to give it some variation. And that was probably one of the more enjoyable parts for me as well. With the platforming, the puzzles, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I like how they integrated the platforming, which is a key gameplay mechanic, into the puzzles.
Yeah.
It wasn't like collect this, put it over there. It was like climb this thing, get that thing, climb the other thing.
Yeah.
But I know we griped a lot about the the action scenes, and I thought about it before we came on the air, and I thought, why did I hate the action scenes so much? And I'm thinking of scenes like the graveyard, or scenes where Nathan Drake spots the enemies, but they haven't spotted him yet. And I thought this would have been a perfect element for stealth. And that's what this game is missing. It's missing any sort of stealth mechanic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it does like stealth. I guess you can kind of sneak up a little bit and, you know, maybe fire off a headshot, maybe take out one enemy, and then, you know, just becomes, you know, all out, you know, combat, duck and cover type combat for the most part.
But you can't go pure stealth.
No.
Right, which is, I mean, maybe Steven can chime in on this one because he's played Uncharted 4, and maybe there's some sort of element in that, because I know they borrowed a lot from what they learned in The Last of Us and inserted that experience into Uncharted 4.
Yeah, there are more stealth mechanics in 4 and a bigger emphasis on it, and I believe you can't do this like through the entire game, but there are at least certain entire sections where you can stealthily take out the entire group of enemies. So it's not as much of just a afterthought at best, like it is in the first game.
No, that's good to hear. That kind of excites me to keep Uncharted 4 on my radar, because I mean, I think there's a bit of a hesitation saying that, like, I've played Uncharted 1, I've basically played them all, you know. But I think it sounds like Uncharted 4 brings enough, you know, variation to the table that it keeps it fresh. But yeah, so in Uncharted 4, do you have any sort of like way, like any opportunity to like choose the way you play? Like you can go in stealth or you can go in guns blazing?
Yeah, I mean, of course, guns blazing is always an option in an Uncharted game, but with 4, there are certain areas where there's maybe like tall grass where you can sort of crouch down and move through that, and the enemies can't see you. That's probably really it to the extent. I might be forgetting something, but that was kind of the main way they implemented stealth in 4.
Okay. Because, I mean, like, it was essentially non-existent in this first game. Right. And so it sounds like for it to be present and you know, a completely viable option in Uncharted 4, there is almost like a cyclical relationship between Uncharted and Tomb Raider. Because, I mean, it's so obvious that Uncharted has been influenced by Tomb Raider. And just a couple of years ago, we had a Tomb Raider reboot, which I'm sure was heavily influenced by the Uncharted series.
Which we played as a playthrough.
Which we did play. And Pam, you know, who we all know as Cannot Be Tamed and who runs the Media Mavens podcast, she brought this up too. And she said, I'd love to hear some discussion on Nathan Drake versus Lara Croft. Where can you see influences from the original Tomb Raider, which I'm sure I'm sure Rich can help us in that department. The original Tomb Raider and Uncharted 1. And are there places where the TR reboot, I can't say it, TR reboot has been influenced by Uncharted?
Yeah, I mean, I played the original Tomb Raider when it came out many years ago. I can say that, you know, no doubt, like, Uncharted definitely takes very similar mechanics from the original Tomb Raider game. You know, like the jumping, the grappling, you know, the lunging and you know, grappling after you lunge, and definitely, you know, improves that. I mean, I think, you know, Tomb Raider was a huge influence on a lot of games, you know, as far as platforming, and it was really revolutionary.
One thing, I don't want to cut you off too much, but one thing I want to add is that, like, Uncharted, you know, really being a product of modern gaming, has this sort of, like, I almost want to call it like sticky platforming or sticky jumping. It's sort of just like all you have to do is kind of point yourself in the general direction of the platform you want to grab, and you'll automatically grab it.
Yeah.
In the first Tomb Raider game, there's a jump button, and I think there's a grab button too, isn't there?
Yeah. And it's definitely definitely not as fluid as like Uncharted, but like I was saying, if you look at the sort of progression of games, like from the PS1 to the PS2, if you're looking at something like Shadow of the Colossus, it gets better and better, as you move on. And I think, I don't know, like, what, was directly before Uncharted, what games, or, around the same time as far as this type of climbing, sort of platforming. But I think, it really borrows a lot from those early games, sort of the mechanics and, ledge grabbing and things like that. And just, it's really, enhanced. And you guys can speak a little bit more about the, the newer Tomb Raider, the reboot. And,
okay.
Rich, did you not play that one with us? I can't remember.
I played it from the beginning. That was when we were still doing a modern and a retro cast.
Right.
And so, of course, I played the retro game, and I don't recall what it was that month. And I bought Tomb Raider with the intention of playing it, but I just kind of ran out of time. I played some of it, but I feel like I didn't. I got to more of the sort of the shooting mechanics of the game, but didn't really get into any sort of platforming with that game. I didn't make it far enough for that.
Right. There's one thing I wanted to mention, and I'm so grateful that we're answering Pam's question. I've said it before when she was on the show. I'm a huge fan of her and her YouTube channel. But one thing I wanted to throw into the show, and I guess this is as good of a context as any, is that I was kind of excited to play Uncharted because of my experience playing Tomb Raider reboot for the second time.
I'm really happy to hear that now,
No, it's kind of funny because when you said, when we decided we were going to play Tomb Raider reboot, I was like, okay, like I've played that game before, but it's really good. And playing it for a second time, I went through it and I was like, oh my God, this game is even better the second time. It's so amazing. Like, I love this. One of my favorite games of this generation. It's amazing. So when you said we're going to play Uncharted, I was like, well, okay, like it'll probably be good. I remember liking Uncharted. So
right.
It's kind of funny. It like shaped my expectations for going back to the original Uncharted. And, I didn't have quite the same experience where I thought like, oh yeah, this game is not only good, but it's even better than the first time I played it. It was actually quite the opposite. But I just felt like I had to throw that in there in the context of Pam's question. But I would just, my 2 cents would be that the Tomb Raider reboot is a better version of Uncharted. Again, I haven't played Uncharted 4. It could be the greatest game ever made, but playing the Uncharted trilogy, I still think the Tomb Raider reboot does everything the Uncharted trilogy does, but does it better. And I still love that game. So,
see, I'm my sort of take on that question kind of throws a curveball into this whole thing, because I really feel like the Tomb Raider reboot borrowed more from The Last of Us. However, we wouldn't have The Last of Us if we didn't have Uncharted.
And we wouldn't have Uncharted if we didn't have Tomb Raider.
Right.
Right. We wouldn't have Tomb Raider if we didn't have Indiana Jones.
I'm sure it all goes back to like Pitfall or something.
And we wouldn't have Pitfall if we didn't have David Crane and Activision. No, but it's true. Like, this is a long lineage. I mean, Indiana Jones was based on the movie serials in the 30s that Steven Spielberg was really into. So it's like, it's a tradition. We see this all the time in media. And,
right.
There's theories on, how many actual stories can be told. And everything's been done, and we're just redoing everything over and over and over again.
Right.
So to play Uncharted and Tomb Raider, it's just another version of the action adventure story. So
no, that's a really good point. I never thought about it that way. So I'm happy you brought it up. And I think Uncharted is like, it is a product of its time, and it's probably a very much needed departure on Naughty Dog's part to go away from like the kiddie family friendly kind of game to a more adult game.
Yeah. Now,
But having had 10 years pass between Uncharted 1 and now, there's a whole new level of maturity in games, right? Like we're at the time, this was considered really
Revolutionary.
in depth, revolutionary, right? Like excellent writing, excellent gameplay. But still, like if you go back and you watch reviews or read reviews, they were still emphasizing like this game is so much fun, this game is so awesome. Whereas now it's like, where a lot of criticism against games is like, how does it make me feel? Like, I'm thinking about like a game it's in early access right now, but it's called Jalopy, and the whole premise of this game is to drive this jalopy car through the Eastern Bloc into Turkey, and your car will break down, and you have to scavenge parts, and it's sort of a telling sign of a newer level of intellect in games or maturity in games, where it's not relying on overt action or like the quote power fantasy. I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I get what you're saying, Floyd, but still, there will always be those kinds of games and these kinds of games. Like they're not
right. There's room for both.
Right. It's not it's not like a pie. It's not a zero-sum game, right? There can be any and all types of games, but I think depending on what year it is, what month it is, what's hot at the time, you will see, AAA blockbuster games are more popular. And 6 months down the road, indie, games that give you the feels are more popular. So,
no, that's a good point. And I think if there's any takeaway from at least this segment of the discussion is that like it's a great time to be playing games.
Oh yeah. Actually, this is totally maybe a digression, but it was one thing that I wanted to throw in, and something you said made me think of it, Floyd. But I did notice replaying Uncharted 1, something I didn't notice playing the other games, Uncharted 2 and 3 back whenever I played them, but that whoever was doing the facial animations, I think they used a lot of what they learned from Jak and Daxter to do the facial animations, and I swear there were a couple emotions that I saw come out of Elena's face that I could pinpoint where I saw them in Daxter's face in a Jak and Daxter game.
Good point, because they kind of have those like moments where they go, ooh.
Yeah, and some of the reactions are so cartoony, and it's like, oh, that's Daxter right there. Like, and I don't. That's not a criticism in a bad way. That's like they're just using what they know. But it was just kind of funny. Like, there were some really trademark emotions, facial animations that came through that, and
right, and I think again, probably sign of the times, or product of its time. Sorry, where I'm sure the newest Uncharted game is like fully motion capture. They do like the face motion capture thing, and in this game, I wouldn't be surprised if only the main cutscenes were motion capture, and the rest was just like, hand animation, like, I think you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, no, it was probably a lot of keyframe stuff. I don't know the exact, development of this game, but I would imagine you're right. It was probably less mocap and more keyframe kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Which, again, isn't bad. It's just, that's what they did, right?
Right.
But I think... I kind of had my soapbox moment. We got to give Rich his time to shine, because there was one scene that I think he thought was really fun. And I think we all really enjoyed this moment, too, because it really gets the adrenaline going.
Oh, you're talking about the vehicle scene?
The vehicle scene where you're driving towards it. There's one vehicle scene that you absolutely hated.
Yeah, the dichotomy of the vehicle scenes.
Yeah, okay, so...
There are two vehicles in the game. There was the Jeep, which is confined to only one scene, which is, that's a shame. But I really enjoyed the Jeep chase scene. Kind of odd that there were that many Jeeps out in the jungle at that time, but still a lot of fun. It reminded me a lot of Blood on the Sand, 50 Cent.
Yeah.
There are several scenes in that, but it was a lot of fun. And you shooting from the side of the vehicle. Some of it was in front of the vehicle, some of it was behind the vehicle. It's just a really fun chase scene. It was a nice way to sort of break up a little bit of the action, because up to that point, there's some puzzling going on. There was a lot of duck and cover action, and so it was a nice break. It was kind of refreshing. I was like, oh, okay, well this is nice. This is a nice little change of pace in the game, and I really enjoyed that.
I want to say though, like you said, like this is restricted to one scene. And the jet ski scenes, there's two of them, which you really hated those. I'm sure, like in terms of like gameplay wise, like how many minutes they last, they're probably roughly the same.
Yeah, and it's not so much. They're both vehicle scenes, but they're very different. One, is just you're just focusing on aiming, right? You're aim and fire. The other scene, you're having to focus on shooting enemies, shooting barrels out of the water, and navigate a jet ski. In one scene, the first jet ski scene wasn't so bad because it was like kind of open, flat water. There's a little bit of cover you could get under to sort of replenish your health. But with
for the most part, it's just like go upriver, go from point A to point B.
Yeah, the second was just upriver, and sometimes the jet ski would get bogged down, and the controls just didn't feel really natural, really good, and having to try to navigate your way up the rapids while firing at like just random barrels floating down the river. Right. It just seemed odd. It didn't make a lot of sense. But
it's almost out of place. Like the jet ski scene itself is not out of place because you are in like the Amazon, right? But what are all those oil drums doing there?
yeah, that was a little odd. So, but like I said, the Jeep scene and the first jet ski scene didn't mind at all. It was a lot of fun. But
I think the Jeep scene is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like it's so much fun.
Yeah,
it's so rewarding to have like three guys chasing and you just pick them off sort of one by one. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like I said, nice break in the action, something a little bit different to give the game some variety. And I thought it was kind of integral and in the game, and a really good spot for it.
Right, and best of all, it kept the momentum from the previous scene, because I think that's when that's towards, it's about like a third of the way through. That's when Gabriel Roman finds Nate and his buddies, right? Mm-hmm. So like they've sent their goons out after you, and you've got to run away.
Yeah. So,
but anyway, the jet ski scene, the first one, like you said, not too bad. The second one, I approached it so slowly. Mm-hmm. So like I'd pull up to one area, like, okay, there's barrels here, got to shoot those. Oh, like there's some dude up on a ledge. Okay, shoot him. Okay, move on to the next area. Mm-hmm. Totally, broke the pacing for myself there.
Yeah.
But only because it would be so much easier that way.
Yeah. You couldn't just plow through it. I tried that a few times. I tried several different approaches, and you just can't plow through it. You have to shoot either the barrels or the baddies, or both, right? Yeah. So I don't know. What did you think about those scenes, Steven?
Well, for the Jeep scene, like you said, it was a lot of fun. It's always fun to get on an infinite ammo turret and just shoot up bad guys and blow up vehicles and stuff. So that was really good. And I actually want to mention a video that Shawn recommended to us last time we talked. I think I forget the YouTuber, but he talks about the progression of the evolution of these vehicle scenes. It was a very interesting video.
It was Hyperbit
those
Hero.
Scenes are
Sorry, I just wanted, the YouTuber is Hyperbit Hero, and he has awesome videos on everything, so check him out.
those like running towards the camera away from something are very key Naughty Dog gameplay moments. Like, I think it happens at least once in every Uncharted game.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. And as far as the jet ski scenes go, definitely not my favorite parts of the game. I feel like I didn't dislike them as much as a lot of people did, but I did find them to be very frustrating playing on a higher difficulty because you can't take cover. So you can imagine how that goes.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Not my favorite part of the game, and they didn't reuse that in any sequels, I don't think. So I guess it's not it's probably kind of a universally disliked part of the game, I would think. But
I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. It's not particularly good.
Yeah, it's one of the lower parts of the game for sure.
Any favorite moments or anything other than the jet ski scene that you guys didn't like?
Well, I'll mention something that was. This isn't something I didn't like. I think it was sort of mentioned on the forum, so I'll just kind of bring it up. As far as gameplay is concerned, the collectibles in this game. There was only one type of collectible in this game. I imagine this is probably very early on before collectibles became sort of the new thing, and achievements became so I guess rampant.
I'm kind of interrupting you here, but I'm happy that you said achievements because
Chivos, dude.
Yeah. This game doesn't really award you achievements, but it awards you these, like, I want to say, like, in-game credits that, like,
medals.
When you medals, right? So you get these medals, and then you unlock things like character skins and concept art, which is a little bit more interesting, a little more motivating than just like, oh, look, I got the bronze trophy. But anyway, so you're talking about collectibles. I know, it's just something that you just made me think how this, like, I don't think this game, it probably does have trophies, but...
Yeah, it does.
Oh, okay. But it's, what you see popping up on screen more is like, you've, done, 10 grenade kills, here's a medal, right?
Right. But I was talking about the sort of the item collectible in the game.
Right.
Yeah, with the small treasures and stuff like that. Those are kind of fun to kind of go around and collect, and it's kind of nice that that you can kind of go back to areas for the most part, unless you go too far, and sort of search. Once you've taken out all the enemies on the screen. So it's kind of nice. Some people said it was just kind of pointless. They didn't see any point to it, but it's just a little extra thing that I kind of enjoyed. I didn't try to collect them all, if you will. But
I was going to say, for the most part, it goes hand in hand with the story.
Sure.
Right? And it's not like, it doesn't feel tacked on. Because you are a treasure hunter after all. So, why not sort of scavenge the area for sort of, goodies and relics and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point about that. Because it's such a minor part of the game that, it's easy to overlook the collectibles, but it's such a key part of it at the same time.
Yeah, Steven, did you go for 100% collection?
I printed out a list and I got them all along the way. And the reason why I really kind of go out of my way to do something like that is not really that I care so much about the collectibles themselves, but I actually do really like earning the trophies in games, mostly because a friend of mine and I, we sort of compete with our trophy scores. So it's, we're kind of neck and neck. So getting those extra trophies helps keep my score above his. So, yeah.
That's cool. I'm not into it, but I can't knock it. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't be into it if I didn't have that competitive aspect to it.
Right. No, that's really cool, actually. Yeah, with the collectibles, at least this time around, And this brings up a bigger point, and I want to make kind of a confession here, is that my frustrations with the game maybe came from the fact that I was rushing it a little bit. And I don't want to say like I was just running out of cover and I didn't know what to do. I was just trying to run and gun the whole game and He-Man the whole thing. It's not quite that, but being that this game was a playthrough game of a game that I've played previously and it's a freaking 6-hour game, I thought like, oh, I could just bust through this game and it'll be fun. like I think part of my frustrations came from just not being able to do that, quite frankly. But the way I approached the collectibles was if I saw one, I would hit triangle, and I 9 times out of 10 didn't even look at what it was. I just hit circle to cancel out and just kept going on with my life. So, but you can, when a collectible pops up, you can look at it, rotate. There's a little bit of color text about it, and you can read about it. It can be interesting if you want to get into it, I guess. But done much better in games that came after it, we should say.
Yeah, that's fair. That's, it's kind of, in Uncharted 1, it's kind of just there, for like almost for the sake of being there, but, I guess I had to put some sort of collectible thing in there, something to give those trophy hunters. But yeah, it is, somewhat relevant to the story. That, since we're talking about, picking up collectibles, which would often be hidden, sometimes in like plain sight, other times in more like obscure corners, like level design. I think Naughty Dog is really good at this is probably their strong point in video game development, is they put together really good, interesting, and fun levels. I think what stuck with me most is a lot of levels would have verticality or would sort of come back on themselves. Like you'd exit an area only to come back to it a little bit later, and it would still feel fresh.
Yeah, okay, crickets chirping. No, I agree with you, Floyd, and this is one of the things that I notice this most, and y'all are gonna laugh, but when we played 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, I commented on that show about how it would flush you through one environment and then turn you around and flush you back through it facing the other way. And the first Uncharted game does this not quite as well as 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, to be honest, but and not quite as well as games that came after it. But you can see that you can see the kernel of an idea of that kind of happening, where it pushes you through one area and pushes you right back the other way by putting enemies like behind you, and you have to turn around and flip to the other side of the cover that you were on. So yeah,
that's a good point.
Kind of reusing environments and using them in different ways. Like that's definitely going on.
I never really even thought about that. But what I sort of had in mind was like that castle level where you have to save Elena. Like there's a lot of climbing and platforming there, and there would be a lot of this sort of like, well, you kind of enter one room, like on the ground floor, and sort of like climb around, end up on top of the building, and then like access a whole new area which fed you back to like an earlier area, but at, you'd maybe be, at a higher level, you'd be in the basement or something. I think what I'm trying to say is that, as far as like the climbing goes, that was my favorite part.
Yeah,
the castle.
I mean, I know what you're talking about, Floyd, and I like probably one of my favorite parts of the game was the first part of the game, and sort of where you kind of realized that this sort of playback on itself is going to take place, is where, after the whole U-boat, the German U-boat scene, where you have to run back out of the entire place again. That's kind of a really
good point.
That's a really awesome scene, and it was like, well, I mean, I don't even mind seeing the same things that I've already traversed. It's really that was really cool, and it was really quick too. It was it did a good job of you had to figure out these puzzles to sort of manipulate your way around, but then you realize, oh, it's not that vast of an area going back through it, and it just kind of worked out well. It had a nice flow to it. Even though you were sort of traversing some of the same things, and you saw that sort of a lot during the game. Even toward the middle of the game, you kind of wrap back around to that at the end.
Yeah,
which is kind of neat. Yeah.
So I mean, any more thoughts on like level design, sound design? Any thoughts on that? I don't want to call it minimal, but the music was always very appropriate for the scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nothing that really stood out, I guess. But
nothing that really stood out.
And I think, as we've talked before about a lot of games, a lot of games will have that sort of soundtrack that just kind of fits nicely into the background. It's not bad. It's not exceptional, but it goes really well with the game. And sometimes if you don't notice it or you don't really pay attention to it, it's probably a good soundtrack.
I was about to say that. Yeah. So like your point about how if you don't even notice a soundtrack, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's kind of odd to say that. It sounds funny coming out, but it just kind of means
that,
it just kind of fits.
Blend.
It's a good blend. So.
I did notice the like the beatnik like hand bongos started to like kind of annoy me a little bit, if you all know what I'm talking about. And also when Nate dies, that like reality show sound like that. Like, oh my god, that's so annoying. Like,
maybe you just heard it too much.
Yeah, totally. Like, and I wouldn't consider that music, but totally part of the sound design. That was like, oh, come on, stop. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, we got to give credit to the main theme. Like, that's pretty iconic definitely. At this point. For a franchise that's so young. I think everybody knows, when they hear da 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 da, like that's Uncharted. Like it has a pretty iconic it's Uncharted.
Main theme. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
but I think like you boot up this game and you're on the main menu screen and that theme picks up and you're just like, this is going to be epic. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah. No, I'm with it. The in-game music, maybe not so much. Again, Floyd, I agree with you, too, that is minimalist. A lot of times there is no music. But and a lot of times the music is a way for you to know if there are any more dudes to kill. When the music stops, you can say, oh, God, I'm finally done. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention that because that was my audio cue to know, like, okay, I finally cleared this room.
Yeah, no, exactly. When the music stops, it's like, all right, I'm done. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big sigh of relief.
And then I would walk forward and step into one of those traps, one of those swinging claw traps. And I was like,
no checkpoint. Start all over again.
It's good that those were only kind of in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because those traps were really annoying.
Well, and I guess we should say that we kind of mentioned it is the whole mechanics of this game as far as where it puts you like after you die. A lot of times it's right at the same spot, but most of the time it's not too bad. I never got really annoyed with how far it would set me back.
Yeah,
right.
I gotta say, I complained.
Was reasonable.
Yeah, I complained on the forum about the checkpoints at one point, and Steven said, like, look, if it put you in the middle of the room in the middle of a shootout, it wouldn't make sense. Like, the checkpoints are actually fine.
Yeah.
So I think that was more my frustrations with the trial and error gunplay, which we talked about. But yeah.
Right. No, I totally understand because I think I feel the same way is when you spend, so many attempts at one level and then you just keep coming back to that same checkpoint, no matter how close it is to that specific scene that you just can't pass, it's going to start grating on you. And trial and error shooting galleries, you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
But since Steven, I keep confusing you guys. The two handsome men. I can't tell you apart.
Aw.
Since Shawn brought up the shooting galleries, this is something that I really thought this game kind of fell on its face about, is that it's got a lot of unfair deaths. And I'm not talking about platforming, because that's totally my fault. Like, if I missed a jump, that's my fault. But like, especially in the more action-oriented scenes, a lot of the unfair deaths there. And I think that's where a lot of frustration came from, like the checkpoints or like the trial and error, as Shawn called it.
I never felt like, I guess I never really felt like any of the deaths were unfair. Just in my opinion.
Or maybe I should rephrase it. Do you think any levels were unfair?
No, I think like, the level of difficulty definitely amps up 2/3 of the way through, and I think, as I pointed out before, it seemed to me more unfair that sort of the change in what the game was at that point,
right.
From going from like a duck and cover to more of a survival horror game, open game where you can't use cover. That was more what I felt was sort of unfair. I didn't feel like any of the scenes were unfair. Some of the instances that were kind of shooting galleries, as you played through the game, a lot of them got tougher. More enemies. It seemed like in some areas you would like run out of ammo, so you would have to go in, fist blazing, take someone out, grab some ammo, kind of roll away, get back to cover.
Right.
And I didn't mind that. I mean, I really didn't feel like any of those sort of deaths were, what I would consider unfair, or, I never got overly frustrated with that. It was the more of the changing gameplay overall that really frustrated me. And that, it's just kind of my opinion about it. So
no, that's good, because it's sort of it's like as soon as I'm gonna assume that, like, as soon as you mastered the like duck and cover gameplay, they pulled a 180 on you.
Yeah. And you can always, like with the duck and cover, I mean, you could always, even on normal, I mean, you could just stay in cover until your health replenished and just kind of go back at it. It wasn't
right, and that's what I relied on, like 90% of the time.
Sure. Yeah,
but what I think was unfair was that, like, you'd have 2 or 3, 4 sometimes waves of at least 6 or 8 enemies at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, running out of ammo, having to make those risky moves to get ammo and stuff like that. That's what I thought was kind of unfair. Like, maybe the length of these gunfights was sort of not right.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, I don't know. I still didn't think it was unfair, but it definitely brought it out more or further. I mean, we can't call this a realistic game, or a realistic real life scenario, but it kind of brought it further out of that, to be more like, oh, I got to roll in to a guy that's like got a machine gun, punch this guy while other people are shooting at me, and then go back into cover and replenish my health. Right. And so it sort of what's the best way? It sort of broke that fourth wall, that that idea of like being immersed in the game. You kind of know you're playing a game. I mean, you always know you're playing a game, but sometimes you can sort of get immersed in these things, and it seems more natural to where that sort of pulls you out like, a little bit.
Sometimes running out of ammo can heighten the tension of a scene.
Yeah.
But if running out of ammo only reminds you that you're playing a video game, it kind of works against itself.
Yeah. But I will say, one thing I did really like about the game was the weapons in the game. I thought that there was a nice enough variety of weapons and ammo, but it wasn't over the top. It seemed like when you were in the bunker, the grease guns and things like that really fit the atmosphere, and stuck with that whole idea that the Germans were down in that area, and that's where that's why you're using those type of weapons, and it was it was kind of nice, and there were some areas that were more open areas that would have sniper rifles, you'd find some of these new guns. And so there wasn't like an overabundance of weapons. There probably weren't over 20 different types of weapons in the entire game, which I which I felt, was kind of nice. You kind of got a feel for what everything was and what would be better for whatever situation you were in during the game. So.
Yeah, can I? I'm sorry, you screaming into the microphone here. Can I? Can I just get Steven's take on what we were talking about with the gameplay and with the gunplay more specifically? I posted a meme in our chat of Neil Druckmann that said, if the game's too short, add 7 million more enemies. And Steven said, only you would complain about the number of enemies in a shooter. So, which, I mean, touche, like you're absolutely right. So I just wanted to get your point after going through the whole game, Steven, and hearing, what everybody else has to say about the gunplay and those gunfights that just seem endless and the enemies are just bullet sponges. Like when I think of this game, I always compare it to Gears of War, and for some reason I feel like Gears of War was just a so much better like implementation of this kind of duck and cover shooting. And I just want to get your take on it, like now that we've all finished the game, like just the go ahead, yeah, the shooting. And
I don't know, I mean, I feel like that's I always felt like the shooting was well done in this game. I think there were some people on the forum that criticized it, but I honestly don't see where it's much different or any worse than a Max Payne or Tomb Raider, anything like that. It's funny you should mention Gears of War because you guys keep referring to the enemies as bullet sponges, and yeah, they take a few shots to take down, but I really feel like the term bullet sponge is an over exaggeration when I have recently played Gears of War, replayed it, and enemies in that game can take like a full clip from a machine gun to take down, just because that's the kind of game it is.
Good point.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think like at one point I started counting how many bullets it takes to take down an enemy, and like generic enemies were sort of 3 shots with I guess like the handgun, right?
Yeah.
But then eventually you start relying on more like the 2-handed guns, which you can only carry sort of 2 types of weapons at a time. Well, 3 because you have grenades, but like you have a 1-handed gun and a 2-handed gun, and that's all you have. It kind of adds to what little realism this game has. But like eventually you start relying on like the rapid fire guns a lot more. You start relying on the shotguns a lot more, and you kind of think like, well, it should only take like 2 or 3, but you probably didn't realize that you shot this guy like 15 times when it only took like 5 bullets. I don't know.
I think,
yeah, Stephen, I think you're just real quick. Your comment on bullet sponges is a good one because you know me, like I hate like cliched and overused terms in gaming. Like when I asked you to explain tank controls when we did Resident Evil, like it's just a buzzword that's overused, and bullet sponge is one of those. And even I'm guilty of it. I sent you another, meme that said like this is just bullet sponge the game. But you know what? Now that we're hashing it out, kind of unpacking it a little, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's not bullet sponge, like shooting an enemy 3 times to put him down. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know many people that I could shoot 3 times that wouldn't get knocked down or like say, all right, stop shooting me. Like, but as we've gone over, like
you also don't know anybody with regenerating health,
right? Exactly. Like this isn't a real life simulator. Like, and you're right. Compared to Gears of War, compared to Halo or whatever, like maybe this isn't so much of a bullet spongy problem.
But I guess there is a.
I think there are just times.
Well, yeah, I think there is a valid.
There are just
point
times
there
where it feels like a bullet sponge. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think there is a valid point there when you kind of get later in the game and like they want to make the game more difficult, so the enemies they sort of contextualize it by giving them like body armor and stuff, but they do take significantly more shots to take down, and there could be a point made there that those enemies are kind of start approaching bullet sponge territory, but.
Yeah, but to be fair and to complete this disclosure, I was complaining bullet sponge like within the first 2 hours of the game, and as we've said, like the final third of the game is just totally different and just kind of goes off the rails. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they do. Okay, now the mercs are there and they have helmets, and you're dealing with these mutants and you don't know what they are, and oh my god. We can get into that if you want. Like, where are we going from here, Floyd? What are we talking about?
I don't know. Let's sort of jump right into the ending.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a enemy gauntlet right before the boss battle, and that final boss battle is probably your favorite. Your absolute favorite style of boss battle.
Can you guys imagine? I was screaming like I knew it was coming because I remembered, like, I remembered it, but I was just like, oh no, a freaking quick time event boss battle, a final boss battle. No.
I just like it's anticlimactic when all you have to do is like punch the guy in the head.
Yeah. No, it was bad. I mean, and again, like maybe a product of its time. This was before these kind of things were like way overdone, and people like me are complaining about them on the internet all the time. But like, again, to go back to it and just to be like, oh my god, circle button punch them, triangle button, kick them, and then the game's over.
Yeah,
damn it.
Well, there were other scenes in the game that were button mash scenes, like kind of quick time events where you had to hit the button, quick enough to, like with falling debris or something like that. They were very few in the game, spread out through it.
See, but that's fine. I can live with those because they last like barely a second.
Yeah.
And they're like, they're like integral, moment to moment gameplay elements, but they're not like key, like, if your story relies kind of on a QTE kind of thing, then it's just like it feels, anticlimactic.
Mm-hmm. Well, how would you guys preferred that the game end? Like what? I mean, just sort of like a, for no use of a better term, a bullet spongy type boss battle. Is that what?
Isn't that kind of what it is, really? Like, I mean, the boss fight is more the part where he's hiding behind the crates and you have to shoot him.
That's a good point.
And that's what I mean. That's what I always considered. That's what I always considered the final boss fight. I even forgot that there was a QTE at the end until you guys mentioned it. But
yeah, that's fair. If you want to call that
to it as an entirety, the entirety of it is the boss fight.
Yeah, that final chapter, and he has a pattern where he kind of shoots randomly like 2 bullets, and then if he gets you with that third bullet, it's instant death. Right, so you have to kind of work with his pattern while you're taking out other guys. But I'll give you that if you want to call that whole chapter the final boss, that's fine. And when you say like, what would you rather it be? I'm thinking of Uncharted 2, where I can't remember every little detail, but it was totally different. It was actually like a boss battle where you had to actually do something like fighting other dudes and knocking pillars down on the main boss. But I remember that one being an absolute frustration. So
I know what you're talking about. Because the main bad guy of Uncharted 2 gets like, he's basically like doped up on the magical stuff you've been looking for.
That guy is a bullet
the entire game.
Yes.
Yeah, guy. That guy is a bullet sponge.
Yeah, so I guess that's the case of be careful what you wish for. Would I rather like quick cover between a couple crates and do a quick time event, or would I have this like frustrating, drawn out like killing a million add-ons while you're right, man. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I really cheesed that last. Like, if we're going to call that whole level the boss fight, I cheesed the whole boss fight. Kind of just staying just out of sight of the enemies, like, not necessarily undercover, but, like, because you're on that ship and you have all those containers, right? And I'd be, like, hiding behind a container that's sort of just out of sight of the enemies, but I could still barely see them and kind of knock off a few headshots or something.
Yeah, and you can run back. I did the same thing, and I kind of would like, okay, it's getting too hot in here. I'd run back and grab ammo and just regenerate my health, and then go back and slowly pick them off.
Mm-hmm. Which, it breaks the flow that they're trying to create for that scene, but at the same time, I played on easy, and that last scene is pretty hard.
Yeah, me too. I played on easy, and as we discussed, in the forum and in our text messages, this game is hard even on easy. I don't care what Steven says. Like, it's
to be fair, I did like I said, I was getting like all the trophies in the game. So after I finished the game, I went back to clean a few of those up. So I put the game on easy to do that, and I was playing like ridiculously carelessly. I wasn't using cover. I was just running through enemies, and I was still dying doing that. Which is, it's not how the game's meant to be played, but I was surprised that I was still actually dying because I thought it would be a complete cakewalk.
Yeah. No, that makes me feel a little bit better. No, but that's part of the thing. Like, we can say, like, oh, run and gun, but there's no such thing as run and gun in this game, for real. You have to be undercover.
I'm glad they didn't make the easy setting a cakewalk.
Yeah. I don't think it could have... I don't think it maybe had to be as hard as it was, but... Again, most of my frustration comes from the final third of the game, where
that's
it was
fair.
like, what the hell are you doing to me, game?
I mean, because this was my second time playing this game. I don't want to say it was easier this time around, but I was more prepared. Like, I knew what I was getting into, so I was never caught off guard. So I'm curious to see how Rich felt about a lot of this game, because you're a first timer for Uncharted.
Yeah. I knew what I was getting into. I mean, I've, I know like what these third person shooters are like. So, I didn't really know it was a duck and cover game until I got into it. And I've really never played the Gears of War series, so but I do know enough about it to know that it is duck and cover. But yeah, I knew what I was getting into, for the most part. Like a Tomb Raider type game, Indiana Jones story, and was excited about playing it. When you mentioned that you wanted to play it, I think you and I had like kind of talked in private. We're like, oh, Uncharted 4 came out. Why don't we play an Uncharted game? And that would be kind of cool. What do you think about this? And you're like, oh yeah, that'll be fun. We'll do that. And so, I'm always excited to play modern games with you guys, and and it's one of the reasons I was happy to kind of knock it down to one game a month, so I would have more opportunities to play my newer systems and get a feel for what modern gaming's like and what everybody else is doing. So I enjoy it.
So that being said, do you have any interest in following through the series to maybe not necessarily Uncharted 4, because we know you don't have PS4 yet, but
though I did buy some PS4 games yesterday.
I saw that.
Well, I guess you basically sealed the deal.
Yeah,
you sealed the deal for yourself.
I'll just say that Until Dawn is really good, so just play that when you get a PS4.
Yeah. I've heard so much about that game and seen some playthroughs of that game, and
that I think we have to save for a playcast.
Yeah.
I would love to play that with you guys.
It looked fantastic, and I got that in Bloodborne. But to get back to your question, would I've had interest in playing the other games? Absolutely. Like you guys are talking about, from what I understand, these games only get better and better as far as the mechanics are concerned, and this is the first game that Naughty Dog had done, and so you always expect these sort of bumps in the road. It's not going to be a home run, right out of the park, right out of the box. But I would. The story is interesting enough to me. The characters are interesting enough, and the mechanics and for the most part, were good enough that I can only imagine that they would do nothing but get better and more polished as the series progressed. And to me, that was sort of the the main sort of issue that I had with the game was just some of the mechanics. So knowing that those things are getting better, definitely play more of these games down the road.
Yeah, I think I'd go back and play Uncharted 2. I think it's a much better game than the first, and I definitely want to see where the series is going. So like I want to play at some point, time permitting. I want to play Uncharted 3, and when the price drops on Uncharted 4, I'm definitely going to be picking it up.
Yeah.
Yep. For me, I don't. I'm going to say again, from the perspective of somebody who has played all three of these games, I went back for the playthrough, but if anybody's listening and has played Uncharted 1 or played the whole series before and is thinking, should I go back and play Uncharted 1? I would say don't. You don't need to. It's just a source of frustration.
Yeah.
But having said that, I as much as I again, on the forum, I ranted about this game, controller chucking frustration, as Rich would say. But you just simply don't need to go back and play this game. I'm looking forward to playing Uncharted 4, maybe when I have a PS4 and it becomes free on PlayStation Plus. But I'm not gonna seek it out. I don't want to play Uncharted 2 and 3 again. I just this was kind of a fun thing to do for the playthrough for me.
I'm going to say that if there's anybody who hasn't played the series, they can probably start at Uncharted 2 and just be fine.
Yeah, actually, now that you bring that up, if you've never played an Uncharted game, go ahead, try the first one. Get that Uncharted Drake collection on PS4 and play them all if you've never touched it. But if you played Uncharted 1 before, you don't need to go back to it. I'm
totally fair.
Making a statement here.
Yeah.
So, Steven.
I'll just say, after playing Uncharted 4, I was excited when Floyd suggested doing the first Uncharted, because I was already thinking that I wanted to go back and play the first game just to see how it compares, and I thought it would be really hard for me to go back and revisit this game, but I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And I do think that Uncharted 4 is a much better, more well-made game, but on some level, I still feel like I had more fun playing Uncharted 1 just because it's more gamey, as we said before. There's more action, whereas as you progress through the series, it becomes more cinematic, and they basically, there's less emphasis on combat and more emphasis on just about everything else, which, is totally cool if that's, up your guys' alley. I like the gameplay. I like the shooting. I like shooting bad guys. But for me, it's for me it's
no, that's totally
me,
fair.
The entire series is good, and I'd recommend it.
Cool.
Good stuff. Glad to hear your input on that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Steve, it's nice to hear your thoughts in the game. For those of you out there, Steven's been a longtime member of our podcast. He's been with us, I know, over a year, probably a year and a half now, right,
I think
Steven?
that's about right, yeah.
Yeah. And he sent me a text not too long ago, probably about a week and a half ago, and has, expressed some interest in leaving the podcast and doing some other things. Not out of spite, and not because we don't all get along. We love Steven, and
not because he's better than us at video games by a large margin.
They're really kicking me out because I'm making them look bad.
No, none of that. Steven has some other pursuits in his life that he'd like to, take focus more of his time on, much like Jamie, who left our podcast some time back. And just speaking candidly, man, I'm really gonna miss having you. It's nice to have someone on the show who's such a really great gamer, and knowing that all the frustration that the three of us go through, knowing that Steven's just gonna breeze through it and finish the game, and there's just something comforting about that, and having you on the show, and you always bring a great perspective, and we sometimes we all kind of get uptight about things, and you kind of bring a fresh perspective, and
you kind of bring us back down to earth on a lot of things.
Yeah,
that,
totally.
and we're gonna miss your your experience and your knowledge with games. I mean, like, you know, we're all sort of at one point hating on tank controls and not understanding what they are, and you're like, guys, it's not that bad. It's just like, you know.
Yeah, okay, you're right. but yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be different. I mean, you are the quietest out of the three of us, but when you do say something, it's always very important and very prophetic. And I feel like a kid sitting on Santa's lap, just waiting to hear like every word that you're gonna say and saying, yeah, you're right. So yeah, man, we're really gonna miss you around here, and definitely hope and that you join us in some of our playthroughs. And I think I speak for the rest of the guys saying if you're ever interested in coming back on the show for any of the games we play, we're always happy to have you around. We've really enjoyed having you.
Yeah, cool, guys. I really appreciate all the kind words. And yeah, I just had not that I didn't enjoy doing this. I'm going to miss getting on the air and talking with you guys, but I just have some hobbies that have gone sorely neglected by me for the last few years, and I really want to try to get back into those things, and just feel like I needed to make a change somewhere. But yeah, I would, as long as the door's open, if you guys are playing something that interests me, I will sign up in the thread and feel free to ask me back on. I'd love to rejoin you guys for an episode or two here and there.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks a lot. We really do appreciate it. Appreciate the time you've put into the show and the effort, and Steven's also done a lot of editing for the show along with Floyd, and we appreciate all the effort that, and like I said, that you've put into it. So thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and Steven, please keep your sale and trade thread open on rfgeneration.com
and send us private text before you post your list of everything.
I will keep you guys posted.
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, not connected to the podcast or the forum or anything. I've talked about this before. I've done some of my really some of the crown jewels, some of the prize pieces in my collection are from Steven, and I don't want to talk about him like he's going to die or anything, but he's just not going to be on the podcast anymore. We can still do trades and everything, but like,
I wish shipping between U.S. and Canada wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because
Steven hooks you guys up.
Oh yeah, totally. That's what I'm getting at, and I hope that doesn't stop. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You got my email address, dude.
Keep sending me games. Yeah. No, I still plan on being around RF Generation and all that. Like I mentioned, I'm looking into writing some reviews and things of that nature. So I'll be watching you guys in the community playthrough subforum, and if I see a game that particularly interests me, I will probably sign up and would be happy to join you guys on another episode.
Cool. Very
cool. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so now that we've kind of got that out, let's talk about what we're going to be playing in August. Of course, August is my month to host, so I'll kind of take it away. As many of you know, E3 was very special this year, and one of the best, if not the best games that was announced, that we got to see a lot of gameplay footage of, was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Pokemon Go.
Well, we'll probably still be playing that in August as well.
I will be, I'm sure.
But with the E3 announcement, we kind of thought, well, let's go back and play a classic game, and what can get more classic than the original Legend of Zelda? So pop out your old gold carts, your gray card if it's the classic edition, blow in it, and
don't blow in it. No, Rich, come on, don't tell people to blow in their games.
Good times.
You know what's funny? Can I just interject? I know you're trying to do the preview for next month, but can I tell you I pulled out my Legend of Zelda gold cart. I didn't blow it. I had to clean it not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times to get all the gunk out of it to actually get it to read on my Retron 5.
Wow.
But now
so
I'm good to go.
Don't blow on your carts. Gently swab them with rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, I'm using lighter fluid, which is better than rubbing alcohol. But do
Right.
you know why? I know you guys. Do you guys know why blowing on your carts actually makes them play? It's because your spit creates conductivity. The moisture of your spit creates conductivity between the connector of the game and the console. It's not actually doing anything. It's just making it, and that's going to corrode your contact points. So don't blow in your games.
But it's showing your love for your console.
No,
it's like
no, don't. Kiss. You might as well just lick them. Like, don't do that.
I mean, okay. Now that we got into cart discussion, let me get back to what we're playing in August.
I'm sorry, Rich. Go ahead, man. Sorry.
No. So we're going to be playing The Legend of Zelda, but not only are we playing The Legend of Zelda, but we're also playing the second quest of Legend of Zelda. As many people know, I'm sure a lot of people have finished The Legend of Zelda over time, but not many people have probably finished the second quest, which is much tougher. Dungeons are located in different locations, and items are in different locations. Dungeon maps are different from the first quest. So it's going to be a real challenge for those of you who are interested in a real challenge of a game. This is it. Let's see who can finish it. And then the other thing that we're going to be doing, we decided... We've talked on and on.
This will be the real challenge.
We've talked on and on and on, and I think more people may be excited for the second game that we've picked than The Legend of Zelda. We're going to be playing Jaws on the NES, which you know, Shawn and I have talked over and over about our love for this game, and playing it as a kid, and how people always criticize it as not being a good game, but something that really struck with us in our childhood in playing this game, and a game that's sort of dear to our hearts. And so it should be fun. It can take you 5 minutes to beat the game, or it could take you 45. You never know. So with Jaws.
Jaws is really cool. That's a game that's way ahead of its time, and that is one game. I don't collect complete in-box NES games, but I have two. One is Kirby's Adventure, which is my favorite NES game of all time, and the other one is Jaws, which I got at Digital Press in Clifton, New Jersey, which is one of the most famous video game stores on the planet. And I have a complete in-box copy of Jaws that still has the shrink wrap on it, and it's one of those things where somebody just like took an X-Acto knife and cut the shrink wrap on the top, and it's like in perfect condition. So yeah, that's one of the special things in my collection, and also because my wife absolutely adores that game as well, being a huge Jaws fan, as I've mentioned many times on this show. So I'm kind of glad. I know you picked this kind of as a goof, Rich, but I love it. I think it's...
Oh, I love it too. No, I mean, it a little bit as a goof because we keep talking about it, of course.
Right.
But that's the only goof. I really do like this game a lot. It holds a special place. I remember the first time I played it, you know. So I remember where I was. You know, a lot of people know where they were when Kennedy was assassinated. I know where I was the first time I played Jaws on NES. So awesome. There it is. But anyway, well, that's it. I hope everyone will join us in August for that. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you do, please write us a review in iTunes, and be sure to check out some of our other podcasts. We've I can't remember what number this is. That's pretty sad that I can't remember. I know we're in the 20s, right?
I think we're close to 30.
28,
oh yeah, maybe. This is 28. I
we're
think
just
getting
about
close
30.
to it.
Yeah, it's 28. So we've got a nice selection of podcasts to listen to. Listen to some of our back episodes if you've played the games, and like I said, keep it tuned to us, subscribe, and enjoy. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, Steven.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And with that, we draw another episode to a close. Thanks again for listening, and extra thanks to everyone who participated in the playthrough and joined us on the forum at rfgeneration.com. In August, Rich wants us to put in a lot of work as the summer fades away. Join us at rfgeneration.com, where we'll be playing both The Legend of Zelda and Jaws for the NES. One is a beloved masterpiece loved by millions of people, and the other one is The Legend of Zelda. Just kidding, they're both awesome. Thank you as always for listening, and we'll see you next time on the RF Generation Playcast.